God of all seasons, in every moment, we come before you with open hearts and seeking spirits. You know the complexity of our lives, joys we celebrate, the challenges we face, and the questions we carry. We ask for your presence to guide us, comfort us, and reveal new depths of your love and grace. In this space, may we encounter you in ways that refresh our spirits and deepen our understanding of what it means to live with gratitude. Let this time be together, be sacred, honest, and transforming. We offer ourselves to you now. Amen. So today's message, we're going to be talking about going deeper in gratitude. As you know, November is the month where the Thanksgiving holiday, where we gather with family, friends, and loved ones and celebrate and reflect on things we have to be thankful for. At least that's the point, right? That's not what always happens, unfortunately. While some of us look forward to being with family this time of year, others dread having to be around blood family. Others simply avoid it, and others don't have a family to gather with or can't be around family for one reason or another. Those circumstances, alongside the general state of our country, the world, and other stuff going on in your world in particular, make it very difficult to be in the thinking spirit. And sometimes hearing verses like, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Jesus Christ for you, which is in First Thessalonians, the 5th chapter and 18th verse, and what we're going to focus on today. They ring hollow in the face of trauma and tragedy. It doesn't always help that the mainstream teaching around this idea of Thanksgiving gives off a vibe of be thankful or else. Like it's more of a divine command to follow and not an invitation to experience God in the midst of what's going on around you. Now, it's true that gratitude is indeed a practice that we should all engage in. Yet, too often, when we share this truth, we overlook how to communicate it in ways that make it real, tangible, and accessible to those who hear it. When we hear Paul say, give thanks in all circumstances, of course, we got questions. All in all circumstances, Paul? Are you sure about that? Do you live here in the real world? Sounds like toxic positivity here. Sounds like you're telling me to plaster a smile on my face and don't make a big deal out of how crappy my life is because someone else has it worse. Sounds like if I feel grief or disappointment or anger and frustration with my life in the world, that somehow I do not have an authentic faith or that I'm weak in my faith. It sounds like I can't be me when the shit hits the fan. No, thank you, Paul. I'd rather be honest and feel my feelings than to fake it with God and act like everything's all right or I believe everything's going to be all right. But what if I told you that Paul's imperative to give thanks in all circumstances is not really toxic positivity? What if, beyond the surface of the plain reading of this text, we can find something real, something substantial that can actually give us life for this season and for the rest of our time here on earth? Let's grow there. First, I want to nerd out a little bit on the phrase give thanks. And I want to talk about what it meant in that time and how Paul is using it in his writings. Now, the original Greek word that Paul uses here for give thanks is eucharisteo. It sounds like a term that some of us may have heard in the modern day, like the term Eucharist, which is how the Catholic Church and some other Protestants refer to the Christian practice of communion, or the Lord's Supper for some of us raised Black Baptists. Eucharisteo, when we translate it literally, means good grace or good favor. It was a deeply embedded cultural term used in the broader Greek-Roman world or the Greco-Roman world to reflect social, religious, and philosophical norms and customs that centered around gratitude as a virtue and a relational duty. It was used in the language of politics, of diplomacy, and social interactions. Citizens would express gratitude to leaders, benefactors, or allies for acts of generosity or military aid. There was this emphasis as a culture on reciprocal relationships and the idea of gratitude as a social obligation or exchange. I show grace to you, I show favor to you in a particular area, and you thank me publicly as your benefactor. Sponsors would provide resources, protection, or other benefits, and those being sponsored would have to respond with loyalty, service, and expressions of thanks. This mutual, this reciprocal relationship underscored societal expectations that gratitude was not only a sentiment, but a duty in maintaining social cohesion and status. Greco Roman gratitude often had a strong public component, with social and religious rituals that called attention to the public acknowledgement of thanks. And when you did not hold up your end of the bargain and showed gratitude properly or at all, it could be seen even as dishonorable or even offensive. It was deemed as disgraceful behavior. And so we see here that eucharisteo, acknowledging good favor, carried weight as a social construct that regulated behavior and reinforced cultural norms of honor, obligation, and social harmony. Now, it was easy, of course, for this well meaning concept to get abused and contorted into something transactional and inauthentic, into something that would reinforce power structures and maintain your access to resources rather than a heartfelt gesture and an expression of genuine mutual connection. It would be nothing more than social currency and not a transformative practice or state of being. And not much has changed today, especially in religious settings. We have often painted God as this cosmic benefactor or this sponsor that we owe thanks, no matter our questions about how God's help or God's aid is showing up in our lives. No matter how you feel, you need to thank God. No matter how your life is doing or going, you need to thank God because God could have put you in a worse situation. So you should always thank God. Be grateful because you really don't have anything to be ungrateful for. That kind of thanksgiving is transactional. It's mechanical. It's a disconnection from your real and lived experience here on earth. It literally paints a picture of a God to be feared than one who hears and is here. So if Paul is not painting that picture of God when he says give thanks in all circumstances, what is he really saying? Understanding how eucharisteo was used in his day, I believe Paul meant the following, using the literal translation of the word. He means that in all of your circumstances, find, acknowledge, and hold on to the good grace of God. Paul's words aren't about faking a smile or ignoring our struggles. Instead, they call us to find and hold on to God's grace in every circumstance, a grace that transforms, not denies, our reality. Paul has concluded that the will of God for him and all of God's children here, no matter the circumstance, is to find and to hold on to God. Now, of course, it's not going to be easy. Paul knew that. We all know that. He, in particular, suffered tremendous beatings and imprisonment for the good news that he believed would set people free from the transactional and inauthentic power structures of his day. But in all of his writings, you will see him constantly finding and celebrating the good grace of God, even in his situation and even in his churches that he pastored and led and shepherded. He was always finding the good grace in God and all the things that he was embracing and encountering and experiencing in his life. And it is in that practice that Paul found the strength to face what life brought his way. Gratitude is not lip service. It's not faking it until you make it. It's not putting on a show. It is genuinely finding God and actively resisting the lie that there is only darkness in this world. In one of Howard Thurman's meditations, he describes one of his walks in the forest where he went to a higher elevation where the trees stopped growing and he found himself surrounded by barrenness, jagged rocks, snow patches, and strong winds. The only vegetation there are what seem to be evergreen bushes that are thriving there in spite of the harsh conditions. But when he looked closer, he saw that these were not bushes. The vegetation had the same kind of pine needles as the trees that he left behind. They were actually branches of the same kinds of trees below that had simply adapted to their environment and just grew like vines along the ground. And he says the following about that experience. It was as if the tree had said, I am destined to reach for the skies and embrace in my arms the wind, the rain, the snow, and the sun, singing my song of joy to all the heavens. But this I cannot do. I have taken up root beyond the timberline, and yet I do not want to die. I must not die. I shall make a careful survey of the situation and work out a method, a way of life that would yield growth and development for me, despite the contradictions under which I must eke out my days. In the end, I may not look like the other trees. I may not be what within me cries out to be, but I will not give up. I will use to the full every resource in me and about me to answer life with life. In so doing, I shall affirm that this is the kind of universe that sustains upon the man the life that is in it. I wonder if I dare to act even as the tree acts. I wonder. I wonder. Do you? Gratitude is learning to answer life with life. As we go into the Thanksgiving holiday post election, I invite you to ask yourself, how can I answer life with life? How can I find the good grace of God and be strengthened to navigate the days ahead? The world is not complete darkness. Find the light. As a matter of fact, you are the light. And together, let's keep moving forward. And we will affirm, as Thurman said, that this is the kind of universe that sustains upon the man the life that is in it. Amen and amen.